Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Pour Over Lines. Thank you for joining us. My name is Arian.
And I'm John.
So, in today's episode, we will be talking about Auden again. In the last episode, we broke down the poem, we read it, we did a short summary, we contextualized it in relation to the original of Homer's. And then we talked about a part that we liked. We also talked about why we should read it and one or two themes about it. In this episode in particular, I hope we could open it up to conversation, to questioning, to inquiry, to exploration. We're going to start off with a drink. We have collected for ourselves bottles of various quality. I have White Horse right here, as cheap as we can get.
And I have Suntory Time.
We're not sponsored, by the way.
And yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. I hope they're cool with it.
Yeah. We're not sponsored.
We're not sponsored.
To Achilles.
To Achilles. And Thetis.
And Thetis and Ephistus's Thin Lips.
And Pour Over the Lines.
Yeah, Pour Over Lines.
And
all right.
cheers,
Here we go.
man.
Cheers. Yeah, I hope we don't regret this. I also hope people see this.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Okay, quick recap of a theme. What is this poem about? Auden is trying to describe modernity, and the face of war has changed with the face of man. John, can you say something about war?
Yeah, what about war? I think war has kind of desensitized us to death and destruction. And especially with modern media, with the social media, we could see a lot of death compared to the past, like where we only had photography. But now we have, now we have like videos and we have it colored, and now we can see people. Yeah, it's really. I hope we're not desensitized to it, and I do hope that we become more caring. I hope that caring doesn't have to be, what do you call it? We don't have to force it. You know, we could still feel. Yeah.
Damn, John, we didn't rehearse that. That was good. Talking about social media and care and also power. I always try to keep an eye on power, where it's located, power as potential, the power of us as like a public sovereign. In the poem, it talks about the power overall being delegated to just a few, right? And one of the attractions of social media is that everybody is empowered as a creator. I mean, this is a channel made by us, just kind of regular people. And it's a common question of what kind of power and influence we have. Like a name for what we're doing now is influencing. Like, what is an influencer? What is a creator? And actually, John, I had a conversation with somebody. I forgot who it was. Maybe my student. I was describing myself as a creator, actually an artist. And you like to talk about the arts. And I can't comfortably call myself an artist, but I do want to move, if you didn't know, into graphic design, as you know. So I do want to move into graphic design, but I can't call myself an artist yet, but I'm trying to live an artist life and try to commune people. And let me make a little diversion, but let's connect it to power and influence. Graphic design tends to serve a company, tends to serve your client. It tends to serve capital. You design something so they don't think about it. They look at a package and they're drawn to it. And we were talking about beauty earlier, like what is the point of beauty? What's great about it? Graphic design, in a way, you could say is beautiful. But does it have to serve capital? I don't think so, because I started to realize that it depends on who your clients are and what community you're in. So this is why I'm kind of drawn to punk aesthetics, the idea of being anti-establishment and being contrarian in a certain way and critical. But maybe we could just talk about power and beauty. Is there a relation between power and beauty in any way? You could connect it to the poem or just whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, I was thinking, so as an artist, how do you feel about like Hephaestus and like Thetis? Like she's going to him to get a shield to protect her son. And in this poem specifically, I felt that like it's creating a false promise. But for you as an artist, to what extent do you listen to your own intuition or your own skills, or do
Mm-hmm.
you listen to the client?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like being thetis.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. Let's reread the last stanza
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
could reference that.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
says, "The thin-lipped armorer, Hephaestus, hobbled away. Thetis of the shining breast cried out in dismay at what the god had wrought to please her son.
Mm-hmm.
The strong, iron-hearted man-slaying Achilles, who would not live long." Now, this is kind of interesting because Thetis asked him to protect her son by providing adequate armor, divine
Mm-hmm.
armor.
Yeah.
But it says his intention is not to please her, is to please Achilles.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I could respond to this on two fronts. One, personally, if I want to call myself an artist and I do have artistic intentions, so I want to design, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I have to kind of work from values that are deep inside so it comes out naturally and I could express it naturally.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely want to make something that is critical,
Mm-hmm.
something that is going to open up the imagination to alternative ways of living, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
using something
Yeah,
to
yeah.
use, to open use. So that doesn't mean I have to serve the client.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe every artist has that sense. Like I bet like every product designer has a dream of some way sneaking in something that is dear to them,
Mm-hmm.
but still appeasing the client. But here we see Auden is presenting an artist that is doing something not for her, not for what is stated, for something that is personal.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing it to please the son, to please Achilles.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, so yeah, I don't know if that answers it.
Well, and kind of I wanted to add on to it was that maybe like like as an artist we can't really control what the consumer thinks. Actually, we can only judge it. We can guess, we can intuit what maybe the consumer wants or what the target audience wants, but I think from the artist it really comes from the evaluation of the product, really comes from you and your intent. And then you just have to, like John Stewart made this point, is like, I can only control my intent, but I can't control how you perceive it. And so what he was talking about is like he's just yelling inside like a void, but he really doesn't know how people are receiving it. And maybe that's really out of our control. And so it's not really up for Thetis to decide whether the shield is effective or not. It's really up to Hephaestus to decide that. And but the reality though is Thetis being a nymph, she can or being somewhat divine, she can already sense, especially throughout this poem, she can already sense that this is foreshadowing her son's death, and that and we look as we looked at the sections, like as we looked at her sections, she's really trying to she's kind of stuck in like delusion, right? And she's trying to reconcile with her son's death, like despite all this like barren descriptions and the kind of dire world that they live in. Yeah. So I feel like what I wanted to say is like the art, like for the artists, I think they ultimately they decide what the final product is. And although they can make intent for the target audience, I don't know to what extent they can control it. Is probably my takeaway from Hephaestus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a practicing writer, right?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Do you call yourself an artist?
I Yeah, I would say I call myself an artist. But I think like even as a teacher, I call myself an artist. Like the way that I structure my classes and I shape it, and really like one thing I like about teaching is that it's performative, and so that I kind of treat the classroom like theater.
Yeah.
So it's only as good as the students in it. Every day is different. And I have a broad curriculum, but I'm still painting, I'm still acting, I'm
Yeah.
still performing. So I think everything is art, to be honest with you. And I just try to do things with intention, but I really don't know how my students receive it, to be honest. Yeah.
I think part of performance is also how much the audience or even the actors themselves or the performer himself buys into it. There's an aspect of believability, of even gullibility. You could even say like exploitation, which is kind of a no-no to say, but when I'm performing, I hope to exploit and suspend their belief,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
right? Um, it's a sort of breaking realism and then like teaching something new. Like this is the way we can understand
Yeah, yeah.
yourself. Like you're not just a student; you're a human being in a
Mm-hmm.
wider context. This is the wider context that I'm giving you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but it brings me to the idea of fate. And in the poem,
Mm-hmm.
Achilles, the mortals in general are driven by fate. Even the gods themselves, because we have the is it three moire? I can't pronounce Greek, but the three gods of fate, right? They're weaving
Uh-huh.
fate. I think there's three of them. So even the gods themselves are kind of tied up in the machinations of the gods of
Mm-hmm.
fate, for example. But mortals are even less empowered. And here you could say that Achilles is fated to die.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking earlier about the difference between vanity and glory.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding of in the ancient world is that heroes fight for glory, not for a long life, not for peace. They fight for glory, and they, in a general sense, will condone warfare in order to show their virtue,
Mm-hmm.
to push themselves to the utmost of what they're capable
Mm-hmm.
of. So here you have a raging against fate. You have a
Mm-hmm.
rage against fate because we know that he's going to die. It says in the Iliad, he's fated, he's going to die.
Uh-huh.
So I think this can tie into what you're saying about what John Stewart and artists kind of believe or what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's about the intention because it's something we can control. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to push back a little bit. No matter the good of your intention, you could say there's fate or there's no fate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious of what you would say about fate. Because if there's fate and you know
Mm-hmm.
that, and let's say fate says that you're going to be in the dustbin of history, you won't be remembered.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you know that, like fate comes down and tells you, what's the point of trying? But if fate comes down and says that you will be destined for glory and greatness, and you don't try at all,
Mm-hmm.
your intention is not to try because you already know that you're going to be making it. What's your what's your take on fate,
Right.
John?
Um, that's a good question. Like, I think in a practical sense, and I think this is goes to anyone who's a theist, whether you're Christian or Muslim or you're just spiritual in general. Like, I really feel that really what it all comes down to is how does it affect you in the moment? And so for some people, it could be like having believing in fate and or believing your life is in a divine power could be invigorating or it could be empowering. For some people it could be debilitating. And so I think for me the main takeaway is that how does it affect you in the moment? So for example, I'm Christian and I believe that when I put my life in the hands of God, I really believe in appreciation. So that for me, I don't know whether, and I try to do it humbly, like, as in I don't know whether life is going to be good or bad, but as long as I fulfilled His will, that I made the world a little bit better, and so I just try to live with appreciation, and so that's how being a Christian affects me, and I find empowerment in it versus debilitating. In which, but I totally get. I understand agnostics and atheists and why they believe that. Oh, it's actually, it can be entrapment and yeah. What in you?
Uh, I don't have a deep idea from it. I don't really come from anywhere of fate, I think. Um, but of course, I rage against it. I don't think that we're destined for something. I
Mm-hmm.
think things will be as they will be, but nobody is to say what it's going to be.
Right. Right.
Even if they say what it's going to be, there's still a separate realm of choice, basically. And then I want to go back to what you're saying about speaking to the void or just communicating.
Mm-hmm.
It's the nature of the message and the nature of like meaning in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whatever you say can be reinterpreted as something else. We don't know what the outcome is going to be of something we
Right,
produce.
right, right.
So what is the value of production? And in here we are talking about, we're looking at Hephaestus, a
Mm-hmm.
sort of artist figure.
Mm-hmm.
He creates something that is not what she expected.
Yeah,
It's not what was in the original.
that's right.
So Auden, the writer, is being an artist who is rewriting what the artist is doing. So
Right,
Hephaestus
right,
himself is
right,
a
right.
representation of Auden, the poet, I guess. He's
Mm-hmm.
giving us something. So I'm curious to what is Hephaestus's motive? Like
Mm-hmm.
we know that he wants to please the son Achilles,
Mm-hmm.
but is there anything else to it? What is the why do you think Auden wrote this? I guess is another way to put it. Why did Auden create an artist here who represents himself? Or like what is the role of the artist in here? Because he's depicting a worldview.
That's right.
What's
Yeah.
the function of an artist? That's a very big question, but
Yeah.
is there a way you can would you like to approach that or do you
Yeah, yeah. Like, well, it's just a small idea, but I think, and I really get this from like Jon Stewart. Like, he really talked about like when he talks about comedy, he said like the comedians they cannot change the world, but they're a bellwether. I think was his metaphor, and that they're able to just help you understand the climate a little bit better. And I think Hephaestus, when he made the shield, it was to show the reality to Thetis, like your son might die, and that she needed to reconcile with that. And so I think art can show many perspectives, whether it's true or not, or to what extent, or how intense it can be. That's gonna come up to the receiver. But I really like that part where my empathy or my sympathy goes to her because she needs to reconcile with her son's death. And even though she was promised that she's gonna have a son that could be stronger than the gods, and like she was promised like a divine shield, and despite all these things, she's kind of helpless. And yeah, so but I feel like the artist is kind of a bellwether to tell us a little bit more about our environment. Yeah. I don't know how you feel about. I don't know like if your art when you make art, I don't know if you're trying to understand our environment better, our culture better, or
yeah.
yeah.
Um Before, whenever you would describe me as an artist, I always felt a little bit like embarrassed by it. But actually, I started writing recently, just so you know, and I've told you before, poems. So hopefully they could come out more and more. But now I could answer the question, like, why do I write? Is a good question. Well, part of it is for understanding because I think I don't like the word therapy, but there is a form of processing that goes on. And this might get a little bit crafty, as in workshop ish. But let's talk about the craft a little bit, and you could share a little bit about your own writing process. But when I'm writing a line, I'm not. I haven't naturalized as a poet yet because I'm kind of getting back into it. But when I write a line, the immediate tactical thing I have to do is what's another way to put it? And then I think also, what is a way to make it more vague, but there's still a thorough line? Because, not vague, sorry, ambiguous. Because I think what is great about literature classes and literature in general is that there's always alterity. There's always multiple approaches to it, multiple perspectives that can be made upon it. And you did mention something, we talked a little bit about objectivity. If you want to go that route, then we could
Yeah.
talk about that later if you want. But I always try to make my work a little more ambiguous. And I think this is one of the virtues of poems and literature in general, but poetry in general. You don't say things straight, you say it ambiguously, but in a way that makes you get the aha wonder moment. And that tells you that there's something that is real and personal to you. That the reality that we see is something that is not real until you experience it. It has to be real in your experience. And I know it's a little bit big, but this always makes me think about the difference between truth and facts. Truth is subjective, universally subjective, which is a weird kind of contradiction that I don't know how to deal with. But it has something to do with the experience of truth. It's the way you engage with it. So when I'm writing poetry, I want it to connect in a way that is personal, but will tell something that other people can understand. But maybe someday we could talk about my actual poetry. I'm still learning to write, basically. But what about yourself? What do you think about why you write? Why you write? I think is the question.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, I just write because to just understand something a little bit better. So like if I have a sentence and I try to write like a true statement and then I'd like to see where it goes. And I did want to talk a little bit about that ambiguity that you're talking about is that I think I agree with you like the ambiguity allows for um more perspective on poems. That's why, like for example, like when we look at the Shield of Achilles, there's many things we could talk about: culture, rituals, production, fate, suffering. So, like I feel like if you only had like one point to make, or if you had one thing to say, the poem becomes didactic and it becomes very heavy-handed. And even when I look at like religious literature, like the Bible, like even that has many interpretations, especially when you connect it to life. So I don't like one thing I love about literature is that it's not law, that it invites interpretation, and
Mhm.
so I totally understand why like you would write with like a with ambiguity and just ambiguity kind of is like openness for exploration, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
And
But
yeah.
what about yourself though? Like, do you also write with ambiguity? Because you write more narrative.
Mm-mm.
I don't really have that focus or grit yet, but I'm trying to write poems.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to fit my character a bit more, but you write differently. You write narratives.
Yeah, like well, for me like I really love the close third person. So I really like to go from like like one thing I like is like going from a general statement and just following that line of inquiry just to see where it goes. So for example, like if I look at Tolstoy's like opening line like where he I think the opening line refers to like a line in the Bible where it's like vengeance is mine, you will repay. And when you read that line and then you read the rest of the when you read the rest of the novel, this is from Anna Karenina, you kind of get a sense that where is this vengeance coming from? And like you can see that that little line kind of like helps you understand all of the actions of the character and kind of understand like it teaches you how to read the rest of the text. So when I look at so the reason why I like close third person is because that psychology teaches me how to read the body language and everything becomes symbolic at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so and then to be honest with you, and I always tell this to my students that I can't tell the difference between a person and a body of text. Like I feel like text is soul.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Tolstoy is a good example because he always writes in like he makes general statements, but then
Mm-hmm.
those general statements are really just those characters' ethos. And I go, oh, okay, like, like he believes that this war, the Napoleonic War, is justified. Okay. And then like at least I can see that perspective. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then when we were talking about objectivity earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and
Different perspectives. Yeah.
for me it's like yeah, different perspectives, but I think you had a more universal understanding of objectivity, right? Like yours was more
Mm-hmm.
well, mine's more about perspective, but yeah.
Uh,
Did you have a yeah? Did you want to say something about objectivity, or just literature in general, or?
yeah, I guess just one thing. It's not a fully fleshed out thing, but you're aware that I'm coming from a Lacanian background, 10 years removed, but an idea of the objective. I think Agamben kind of makes a point about it. He says that objectivity is the matter of words,
Mm-mm.
and words will fail, and that's why we have it multiple interpretations.
Uh-huh.
We cannot convey what we actually intend.
Yeah, yeah.
So whenever there's a contradiction or there's a failure for symbolizing something, then we know we've reached a point where it's not something that is caught by the symbolic, it's something else. That's the
Mm-mm.
point of that. That the objective is something that everybody kind of circles around because we cannot approach and be happy or content with.
Uh-huh.
So it's always a point of contention. And then when we stop contending, we kind of stop fighting for that subjective truth that I mentioned. We
Mm-mm.
stop connecting on a real personal level.
Yeah.
And we're kind of flattened out, and then everything becomes statistical.
Mm-mm.
Talk about the poem a little bit.
Well, do you think that the what's it called? Is that postmodernism? Like when things are like things can be written and or things can be understood in different contexts.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like Lacan's theory?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's saying that okay, if it's not symbolic, then there's these other interpretations to it, and like, am I
Uh-huh.
like that's my understanding of postmodernism. Like it's like you can read things out of context, and then it could still have meaning. Is that what Lacan was talking about, or?
Um, yeah, it's hard for me to say because because I don't know how to think of it in terms of moral relativism because that's commonly the charge against. Oh, our friend is here. James, come on up. Oh no, I don't know if that worked. Sorry. So for Lacan, everybody has their own personal truth. I don't really know on what plane of truth everybody consists in. Sorry, James. Come on in. Yeah. I forgot where we're going with this.
We're talking about postmodernism, and is like, do we have to read? Can we read things out of context, or like,
Uh,
like if symbolic is not the right context, is there what's the alternative? Like, there's the literal, symbolic, and
yeah.
yeah.
For me, it has to do with contention, and the world has to be able to contend with one another. We need the capability to contend with one another, which is why notions like truth and protection of truth and protection of expression of speech are so important. Yeah, and it's always a question of the echo chamber. To what extent can we come out of the echo chamber and actually stop hearing the same message over and over? Because the way the world is going is kind of going to hell at the moment, especially in the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks only.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe we could head to a close. We could tie it
Yeah.
into the poem a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. Let me get it. We're still filming. Oh yeah. We're just gonna continue a little bit, maybe like 5 more minutes. How do you want to close this?
Um.
You asked it in the last episode a takeaway.
Yeah.
Is there a topic we didn't talk about? Because I'm actually interested in the urchin. In the second to last stanza, it talks about a ragged urchin, aimless and alone, and we're well. I was educator. That was my profession before. You are an educator. I'm curious as to the youth here. And the second to last stanza does suggest a playground setting of sorts. Definitely a communal experience. Let's read it again. A ragged urchin, aimless and alone, loitered about that vacancy. A bird flew up to safety from his well-aimed stone. That girls are raped and 2 boys knife a third were axioms to him who'd never heard of any world where promises were kept or one would weep because another wept. I say that because it talks about girls and boys, not men and women. So to me, this is kind of tangentially touching upon the significance or the importance of education and educators in general. And then it just came to me, well, what do you think Auden is trying to teach us? Because to me, the fact that he brings up that this, okay, what could happen to us if we lived in this world is that there could be ragged urchins, aimless and alone, who are doing bad things because they've never had a model before. They've never had someone where promises were kept and where you could weep because they saw another person. No empathy, no sympathy like that. No communal teaching. But what do you think this is saying about education? And maybe we could close on that. So after you say something, maybe I could hopefully say something about that as well.
Yeah, I'll just add one small thing. Like, I think at this point, like, I think that there's a loss of innocence, and it's, I think, tied into art. That, well, while art takes a perspective on an issue or an environment or makes a point, that you're still acquiring knowledge. And I think that maybe, I think, like, when I connect it to Thetis, I think there is a loss of innocence, not just for the children here who live in this kind of dire world, but also for herself, because she's trying to reconcile with Achilles, with her son's death. And so I feel there's a loss of innocence. Yeah.
What about education? What function do you think we have? like one generation upon another generation. Because for me, it's
Hmm.
focused on the youth in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
stanza.
I've yeah, I feel like maybe education. I think I think you lose innocence with education. I think
Mm,
like the more knowledge you gain, the more aware you are of the world. And I think that's how I tie it in, like as art and as education, that they're not innocent anymore.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, like especially girls getting raped, two boys knife a third,
mm-hmm,
like a ragged urchin, like suffering from poverty. They're aware of their dire situation, and so I feel like, but in that acknowledgement, there's education, and
mm-hmm,
so, and I think, when I connect it to Thetis, she's also growing aware that, oh my gosh, like this is out of her control too,
mm-hmm.
and she needs to, yeah, live with it.
Yeah,
So I feel like, yeah, education, it strips people of their innocence.
yeah.
And so, like, I don't know, like, if you feel that way about education. I know, like, I know we have a maybe more virtuous perspective on
Mm-hmm.
education, but yeah.
Okay, so I want to tie this into the recent speech by the Canadian Prime Minister, actually at Davos.
Hmm.
Have you seen it?
No, no, I haven't
Have
seen
you
it.
read it?
No, I haven't read it.
Okay, so maybe the viewers know a little bit about it, but one big takeaway is that he basically calls for the world to stop pretending, and he references oh man, I forgot his name. He's a writer. He won the Literature Prize. I think Kavlev, something like this. He said basically we need to put our store signs down. So in under a dictatorship, we put a store sign up saying we support the party, because if we don't, we'll get in trouble. And then so if one store does it, everybody else would do it because it's normalized. And he's in the original author is saying we should put our signs down. Because if one does it, others might copy us and put it down. So the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, I think,
Carney, yeah.
yeah, thank you. He says we need to put our signs down, basically against what's happening. Like for example, in the face of what Trump is doing. So it's a little bit risky and dicey what he's doing. Um, so talking about truth, here, you said it's already a kind of education. And then I would even go further and say that what Auden is suggesting is that we get our education outside of school also. Because here we just have regular people, like regular
Yeah.
boys and girls, just about town. You can imagine it's just people about town and all this
Yeah,
crime
yeah.
is happening. So it's like, well, I can't make this claim unless it's talking about axioms. And it does, because axiom is a school term, a science word, a math word. So he's saying that we get our axioms or our foundational education outside of school, just like in community, basically. So he is suggesting that, well, if that's the case, then we have to take care of our culture. And how do we do that? Keeping promises and weeping. It's okay to weep. And then our poor Thetis, she doesn't say she's weeping, but I guess she's crying. She's crying out in dismay.
Yeah, yeah.
So Auden is giving her a channel to weep, an audience, and that's us. That's us, the reader. So are we going to weep with her? Because she's weeping. Can we learn to weep with her? So I guess a takeaway is that a power of like poems or crafting something
Yeah.
is to give us something that is not there, that could potentially not be there. So he's preserving a space for us to commune against the forces of darkness in a certain way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything else, or
No, I think that's
okay?
it. Like, I think, yeah.
Okay. Well, that concludes our episode of Pour Over Lions. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.